Hey, I'm Monica Neubauer, the Maverick Motivator, and this is number 5 in my home buying series. And today we're going to talk about what happens if you bought a house and now you either want to move or you can't live in it or you want to travel and you own this house and you want to make a change, but you don't really want to sell it. Now, if you're just buying investment property straight off the bat, that's another video series and we can do that later. But right now I'm talking about you bought a house and you either need to move or you want to travel, or you just want to make some money from your house, whatever reason you may or may not be living in it, but you want to make some money from your house. And there's a few options here. So let's discuss them. Let's start with the Airbnb VRBO craze that's been out there. Lots of people have bought houses and made them Airbnb. The hotel industry was not listening to the needs of the public, and the Airbnb industry popped up, and it started with people living in our homes just to make a little extra money, and it's blown into this whole huge industry. Well, let me first start by saying that whole industry is a little bit rocky. It's still happening and it's still thriving, but there's a lot of areas that are challenging within that. So let me start with those challenges first, just to set you up with an awareness. One, a lot of city governments are pushing back, and that's because there have been a lot of Airbnb guests who don't behave. They have parties, they shoot videos in the house, they do things that are not in the spirit of hospitality, and then it creates a hubbub in the street, in the neighborhood. The neighbors get upset, they complain, and so cities now are regulating Airbnb. So you can't just turn your house into an Airbnb, okay? Let me share a couple more things and we'll come back to turning your house into an Airbnb. So these communities have required permitting. Permitting is now almost always required, especially in the suburban and urban areas. Rural might be a little different. Rural's going to have less people coming. They're going to require a permit specifically for non-owner occupant rentals. Now, you've been living in yours, so is it a non-owner occupant? Well, it depends on what you do, okay? Now, if you move and you want to do a full Airbnb rental all the time, now it is a non-owner occupant Airbnb. But if you're just going to be traveling and you want to occasionally let someone stay in your unit while you're traveling, well, that still remains an owner-occupied Airbnb because it's your primary residence, okay? Now, if you're leaving for a really long time and the city finds out about it, they could give you a little bit of pushback, okay? So if you're going to move away and you want to run it like an Airbnb, you want it to be a VRBO, let's talk about that. Now, remember, I'm talking from the non-owner occupant Airbnb or VRBO owner. It must be furnished. So you have to leave your furnishings in there or buy new furnishings. And remember, you're creating a hospitality experience. So you want them to be comfortable and attractive furnishings because the most attractive units rent the best, okay? You are also going to be paying all the utilities because they are renting at a premium the house as is. They're not paying utilities and that kind of thing. We mentioned you have to have a permit for it. And also then the question is, are you going to manage it yourself or is somebody else going to manage it? Now, if you've moved to another part of the country or overseas, you can't manage it, okay? You're not there on site. So you're going to have to pay a property manager. And property managers cost between 10 and 20%, most likely 20% of your net fees. The other problem with specifically non-owner occupant Airbnbs that's happening in the industry is the hosts and owners have started charging, often they'll charge cleaning fees. And so I look at this as a Airbnb purchaser. Now there's a cleaning fee, which happens, is the same whether you stay one night or 5 or a month, maybe. If you stay a month, sometimes people want a cleaning in the middle. But anyway, a cleaning fee, and now because there's permitting, there's city taxes, there's local taxes, there's hospitality taxes, and there's the fee paid by Airbnb and VRBO. So you end up with all these fees on top, and you, as a consumer, you thought you were paying this, and you end up paying this. And I just want you to be aware there's a lot of inventory on the Airbnb market. And before you consider doing a short-term vacation rental, just weigh that really seriously. Is that really what you want to do? Because it's a lot of work and there's a lot of shift in the industry. Now, going over to the model where you're just traveling some and you want to rent your unit out some, or say you have an extra bedroom, and even if you're there occasionally, that's fine. You've got a separate bedroom that you want to rent out. You're still creating a hospitality experience, but most of the time that will not even need to be permitted. You need to check with your local regulations and see what it is, but that generally is more available. Maybe you have an accessory unit attached to your house or in the backyard, and maybe you rent that out. Just remember, though, it is a hospitality experience, and are you going to be taking care of your guests? You can make good money with it if it's well run and you have a good property in an active area. Okay, closing on that, you can research that some more other places or drop some questions down there. The other option, if you move, now this is not for your, I'm still staying in it and I want to rent it out, just have an occasional guest. If you need to move and you cannot sell it, or you don't want to sell it, or there's been a market shift, or you just want to keep it as an investment property, the long-term rental is a good idea. Now, what happens with the long-term rental? Well, they bring their own furniture. They sign a lease for a year or 18 months or 2 years. They rent it. If you're far away, you're still going to want a property manager. But when you have a long-term rental, the cost is generally 8 to 12% for them to get a tenant for you and to manage the property. So it's less money. You want to make sure that your rental rates are more than the cost to own your house, which is your mortgage payment, which should include taxes and insurance. Do you have HOA fees? You want to make sure you at least break even. And that's kind of a financing conversation. I personally love investment properties and own some myself. So I love that as far as long-term investments. So keeping it, I always like that, but it depends on your situation and where you're going and what you need there. But know that if it's a long-term rental, they bring their own furniture, they pay all the utilities. You as the homeowner would still be responsible for repairs, and you could work that out with your property manager. So there would still be cost and maybe some work in them. But it is less work, significantly less work. Some people don't like being landlords because some tenants have damaged the units. I think there's ways to not always protect yourself from that, but to guard against that. And that's kind of another conversation. But for now, that's what I've got for you if you end up moving and you want to keep it as an investment, which I highly encourage. I love investing in real estate. MonicaNeubauer.com. Thanks.